My name is Lane Holt. I graduated from the Biosystems department in 2020. My concentration was natural resources and environmental. Um, I don't remember all of the scholarships I had, but I did have a scholarship every single year through the Biosystems department. Um, I, I believe I had the Dr. Stone. Um, I was the recipient for that one year. Um, I really wasn't that involved in research, but I was pretty involved with some other student organizations. So um, I was involved with the powerlifting club. I was the president for that my senior year, and then was also involved in a you know, couple other clubs, but not in any leadership role. I guess one other one that I was involved with, but it kind of got weird because it was 2020 and COVID threw a big loop and everything. But I was the president of Alpha Epsilon, I
Okay,
believe.
very
So,
cool.
yep. But it turned into a 2 week spring break into the whole semester. Kind of got thrown out the window. So it was, so it was kind of a family tradition to go to Oklahoma State. Um, Applied, got in, got scholarships, so it made it really a no brainer for me to go to OSU. It was close to home, so that was made it an easy transition. Um, and then why biosystems? So this is going to sound bad, but honestly, I didn't know what biosystems was until going. I was being recruited for a fraternity, and we were at a recruitment event, and they were talking to us about majors, and I was thinking engineering, but I had a pretty strong ag background. I was in FFA all through high school and very involved in that. And one of the guys said, "Well, hey, this is a smaller major, but it's in the College of Ag and the College of Engineering." And I was like, okay, I'd probably know some people in that. Or, I know the College of Ag folks. I really don't know anyone in the College of Engineering. And I joined, and it you know had to explain what biosystems was a couple times at job fairs. But once you find kind of the, not really a niche, but find some recruiters that are willing to talk, or folks that know what it is. I've really never had any problems finding a job or a career, but also, but the biosystems department really gave me I'd say good at soft skills by being able to go in and ask questions, talk with faculty, talk with resources, and utilize that to succeed. Um, that was kind of one of the things that I didn't know about it until I was about to leave for OSU. So um, I'm really glad I made the decision I made, because in the biosystems department, you're not just a number on a paper. You know, every one of my professors knew my name. I am asking several of them now for professional references for my PE exam. So, just very, very tight knit department.
Any of your notable college jobs or
Yeah.
internships that supported your job hunt or your career decision making?
Yeah. So I was a student worker. I was the TA for Dr. Atia's class. Um, his I don't remember the exact course name, but it's where he taught MATLAB.
Mhm.
And then I was also the teaching assistant for metals and welding um, out at the BAE lab. So I did that, did both of those. I interned with W&W AFCO Steel as a sophomore going into junior. And then I interned with JBS Beef or JBS Foods at a beef plant out in Cactus, Texas in 2019. And then pretty much from there on, my career's been food related.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yep. So that internship really set me up. And then right out of school, I got a job with Hormel Foods. So,
Very cool.
yeah.
And just a refresher, so you started on the natural resources and environmental side, but you
Mhm.
professionally ended up in the food side.
Correct.
Wow,
Correct.
that's a really interesting transition. So do you feel like I'm going off script here a little bit, but do you feel that you were still well set up to make that transition despite that having
Yes.
not been your research focus? Okay, very cool. Nice.
100%. So almost every food processing facility has some form of waste treatment or
Yeah.
wastewater treatment. So that was always a kind of a leg up for me. Um, as I got into industry and did some environmental reporting, did some of that stuff, I realized that you know I don't want to be confined to just dealing with wastewater and environmental compliance. So I kind of made that decision to broaden to more of like the mechanical side of things and, a lot of maintenance management as well.
Hmm.
So it's been very good. I mean, the classes I use the most, I use Dr. Jones taught it when I was there, but the um, process engineering, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
I don't know what the class is now or called now because they changed it when I was there.
They change them
But
all the time.
yep. But that class, I still have that textbook. It is at my desk. I use that all the time. The pump affinity laws, fan affinity laws, drying, cooling. All that stuff. That textbook has been, like a reference guide because it's very compact and when I can't remember an equation off the top of my head, just flip through it. Oh, yep. And then away we go. So in 2019, I met my boss at JBS. His name was Dwayne Clark. He was the plant engineer, which he wasn't an actual engineer. He's just the head of maintenance in their project. So they call it the plant engineer, which was something that frustrated me, that I had an engineering degree and whatnot. But um, so we'll get back to him. So I impressed him, whatnot. Right out of school, I went to Hormel Foods in Beloit, Wisconsin. I was a maintenance engineer for them. I did that for about a year and a half. And then he called me. He had left JBS and went to a company called Creekstone Farms. And he wanted me to come be a project manager for him, which was kind of my next step in my career path, I thought. So I accepted the job. It was closer to home. It was in Ark City, Kansas, so just about an hour north of Stillwater. So I did that for about a year and a half as well. He left the company. I was still there. He went to a different place called Dakota Ranch Beef up in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And he called me to be the plant engineer about three times. I told him no, I like this location. Um, and then finally I went up and interviewed and they offered me the role. And, um, that was kind of my 5-year goal was to get to that plant engineer role. So like the head of maintenance, head of the capital projects. Um, so I accepted that. I did that for about a year and a half again. Um, and then I met my significant other. She lives over in um, around Marshall, Minnesota area, and ADM has a plant over here. It's a corn wet milling plant, and they had a role open, so I just applied for it. So I'm a technology engineer for ADM now. So I've been in this role for about 2 months now. So, you know, this time I decided to move for personal reasons instead of, professional advancement.
I completely understand that. And we were talking about like going through the job, like
Mm-hmm.
hopping process. That's really common in business today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any positive takeaways from participating in that every year to year and a half upgrade in position? And do you think that that's enhanced your field view, if you will, of the industry as a whole?
Oh, absolutely. So, I've been very fortunate. So most of those were beef processing facilities. So came in on hoof, went out in a box, and everyone does it a little bit different, but it's a very similar process. So, I had the exposure from Cactus, Texas to um, Kansas, and then I was able to pull in some of the mechanical concepts and environmental concepts I learned in Wisconsin to my project management experience at Creekstone, and then I was able to kind of wrap everything together and use that full package at Dimcoda, since I was now in charge of projects and maintenance. So I was able to, kind of utilize the skills I'd learned at these separate jobs and put together. And now in my current role, I'm kind of a project manager, data analyst, and, I solve problems that the plant's struggling with. So to improve yields, things like that. So, um, building a little bit of a new skill set using some new software to, do statistical analysis. So don't skip out on statistics. It's very important. Understand what's going on. So, but I'm still able to use those skills from my past job and my current role, and I think that sets me above my peers since they don't have that same variety of experience.
You've worked heavily in the beef world, and as a lot of
Mhm.
farmers, myself as a beef producer included, it is kind of an honor to know that you're helping feed and give back to your community in that way. But also knowing that we're taking care of our natural resources, or we're taking care of our waterways and making sure that things are protected in that process. So, do you feel as though your work has had impact? And if so, in what way?
Yeah. Being in the food sector, it's so going from like the Hormel Foods, that that company, I really feel like is trying to like produce an affordable, quality, safe product for the masses. It's not like, oh, we're gonna go have Hormel tonight. It's not like the steak and potatoes, but it's I've never went wrong with a can of beef, Denny Moore beef stew. You know, um, and it's very affordable. It's a good product that helps feed people. And then, I've been on kind of the other side of the spectrum at Creekstone Farms. They're premium Black Angus beef. Dimcota's trying to do the same thing where they're a premium product. And, they're serving to the white tablecloth restaurants and whatnot. So I feel like I'm making an impact on trying to feed the world by keeping the machines and everything that produces that food reliable. And now with ADM, um, they make a lot of the ingredients that go into foods all over the place. So one that we pride ourselves on here in Marshall is we make all of the dextrose
Mhm.
for Mark Anthony Brewing. So if you ever have a White Claw, our plant made the
Yes.
made the dextrose.
I
Yep.
think that, I think it's cool that you can look at a product on a shelf and be like, hey, I helped with that.
Yep.
And it's also cool that in maintaining that equipment, you have the opportunity to improve safety outcomes and maintain a safe and clean environment for everybody who works there. So everybody gets to go home safely to their families at the end of the day.
Yep.
Um, okay. Are you currently a part of ASABE or any other professional society?
So I haven't paid my membership dues, but um, because I am taking the PE, I have to renew my membership and start using some of the resources they have. So yes, kind of.
Working on it. Nothing wrong with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
All right.
I'm also a member of RETA, so the Refrigeration Engineers, Technicians, and Association. So from the food manufacturing world, refrigeration is a huge part of food safety and compliance. So I've been a member of that since my time at Hormel.
Very cool. What advice would you give to students preparing to enter this program? So, preparing to enter biosystems and ag engineering, whether it's in the biosystems engineering side or the ag systems technology side here at Oklahoma State University.
So my advice would be to take advantage of the resources that your professors provide, that the student organization provides. I'm sure it's still a thing. I don't know if it was when I was there, but we had a lounge for biosystems students. So there's always a bunch of great resources in there. There's, everyone's super nice. if you have questions on whatever subject you're taking. I know chemistry was a tough one for me, but I was in the lab all the time. I was at office hours every chance I could, pass that class with an A. Um, and then a few of the other classes, like physics, was a really tough one. Physics 2 was really tough. Um, and had the resources from the biosystems department along with networking and talking to the people who'd already been through the class. They gave kind of some advice and some pointers. If you got stuck on a problem, they'd help or point you in the right direction. So networking within the department is definitely a big thing I'd recommend to do. you know because it's hard to do it alone, but that's the nice thing about the biosystems department is uh, it's a small department, but it's very inclusive and it's very easy to ask someone for help. And every time I ever asked, I was always met with someone that was very willing to meet up with me, help me out, whatever it took. And that was a huge blessing. And all the professors I had there in the biosystems department, they wanted to see you succeed. It wasn't a hey, I've got 600 other people in this class. I really don't care if you fail or succeed on your own. Um, we had classes of, I think the biggest one I had was maybe 30 students. Um, and, you know, our, it was specifically, Dr. Thomas would pull me aside and be like, hey, you're not doing so hot. What's going on? And it was an engineering ethics my senior year, and I was just being stubborn on some of them, because that's what I felt was right. So, but he sat down and would explain to me the importance of why the answer was the answer and whatnot, and it helped out so much because you know in some of those bigger departments, the professors don't have that time to sit down with you and take that one-on-one time. So I'm gonna stick with that answer. Is I feel like the biosystems department faculty is genuinely invested in your success.
Awesome. And my last one, what advice would you give to our students who are preparing to enter the professional space?
I think what's worked best for me, um, obviously being humble. There, depending on what industry you go into. So for me, I went into very much a um, mechanical related field. So was working on machines and equipment. So going out and talking to the mechanics that have worked on equipment for years and years, sure, you could sit down on paper and design something out and okay, it's going to work great, but hey, you can't take it apart or, whatever, it's not easy to maintain. So talking to those guys, getting their opinion, um, listening to them, making them feel valued, and then, um, having that humility to say, hey, I don't know everything. What do you think? It really goes a long way because it's very easy to rub people the wrong way and be like, I'm an engineer and think you know everything. Dr. Dr. Weckler told us this in our senior design class. You'll learn more in your first 6 months on the job than you will in your 4 years in school, and he's not joking. So make sure you keep an open mind and never stop learning.
The era of sticking a job for 30 years is kind of behind us.